Another application. API requires something called it as uniform resource locator. If API wants to share the user information from one application to the another application, then API requires the user information. Means you can say mobile is nothing but API and URL is nothing but it is a SIM card. Is it clear? So never ever think that only we are going to use the application programming interface to share the user information from one application to the another application. No, it is not possible. With the API, you have to use something called it as uniform resource locator also. Okay, then only you can share the information from one application to the another application, and how you will get the balance in the SIM card, we will see that. Hey everyone, did you got the clarity? Tell me. Okay, so now we are going to learn uniform resource locator, like how uniform resource locator will help API application programming interface to share the information from one application to the another application. Okay, now understand why we are using the uniform resource locator. What is the need of this? So over here, supposedly here you have user. User is going to open the browser. In the browser, user is going to type the URL of your particular Flipkart application. So can anyone tell me the URL of the Flipkart application? Can anyone tell me the URL of the Flipkart application? Exactly. URL of the Flipkart application is nothing but https colon double forward slash www.flipkart.com. So over here in the browser, user is going to type the URL of Flipkart application. So what is URL contains? Nothing but why we are using the URL. Simple thing is there. Usage of URL. Here, usage of URL. So whenever if I want to access any type of application, why we are using the URL? To access an application. If you want to access an application, that time you are going to use the URL. Supposedly, if you want to access the Gmail application, you will type the URL of Gmail application. If you want to access the SkillRarray application, you will type the URL of SkillRarray application. So what is the usage of URL? Usage of URL is nothing but we are using the URL to access an application. We are using the URL to access an application. Next is nothing but just remember one thing. Here what is URL? Nothing but in the simple language you can say URL contains address address or information information of an application. Means what? This Flipkart application URL contains the address or information about the Flipkart application. Your particular Amazon application URL contains the nothing but address or information about the Amazon application. So always remember, user is going to use the browser, and over here they will type the URL of different applications. So what is the usage of URL? Usage of URL is nothing but to access the application. We are using the URL to access the application in the browser. Browser is one kind of application. So in the browser, I am going to access the another application, that is nothing but Flipkart application. How it can possible? It is possible by using the concept call it as URL. So if anyone asks you why we are using the URL, what is the usage of URL, directly tell them we are using the URL to access the application. If I want to access the application, we are going to use the URL. Next is, if anyone asks you what is URL, then concept is simple. Whenever you will write any kind of URL, supposedly I am going to write https www.amazon.com. So this particular URL will contains the information regarding the Amazon application. That time this URL will contains the information related to the Amazon application, or you can say this URL will contains the address of the Amazon application. Are you understanding, guys? Are you understanding? Okay, so always remember, just by using the API, you can't share the information from one application to the another application. For that purpose, you have to take the help of URL also. So why we are using the URL? We are using the URL to access the application. And what is URL? URL contains the address or information of an application. Is it clear, Ardhamainda? Everyone, yes or no? I'm just getting the response from 10 to 12 students out of 200 to 160. Okay, done then. So here in the JDBC, why we are learning the URL? In the JDBC, why we are learning the URL? What is the role of URL in the JDBC? So observe here, everyone. Role of URL in a JDBC. So in the JDBC, we have two types of application. First one, we have something called it as Java application. Second one, we have something called it as database application. So tell me why in the JDBC, why we are using the Java application? In the JDBC, why we are using the Java application? Exactly. Means all the user information is present inside the Java application. But can we store the user information in the Java application? Can we store the user information in the Java application? So I want to store this user information into the database application, means indirectly I want to share this user information with the database application. So can you tell me how I can share the user information from Java application to the database application? Okay, by using API, but by using which API? I know that by using the API, but by using which API, guys? Exactly. So we are going to share this information by using the API, call it as jdbc API. Can anyone tell me this jdbc API is similar to the which package? Can anyone tell me this jdbc API is similar to the which package? This jdbc API is similar to which package? Only one person gave me the correct answer, two-person. What about others? This JDBC API is similar to which package? Exactly, it is similar to the java.sql. Done. But just now we learned just by using the API, can we share the information? Just by using the API, can we share the information? Exactly. With the API, we have to use something, call it as URL. So here in the JDBC, why we are using the URL? First thing, as you know that usage of URL is nothing but access the particular application. So in the JDBC, why I am using the URL? I am using the URL to access database application into the Java application. Like how here, if you compare the previous example, in the browser application, I am accessing the Flipkart application. Similarly, here in the Java application, I am going to access the database application. See, by using the URL, by using the Flipkart application URL and by using the Amazon application URL, in the browser I'm going to access this Flipkart, Amazon, Gmail, Google Drive, all the applications. So similarly, in the JDBC, I have two applications, that is Java application as well as database application. Done. So to access the database application into the Java application, we are using the URL. Okay. To access the database application into the Java application, we are using the URL, means easily I can share the user information from Java to database. Means easily I can share the user information from particular Java to database. Are you understanding, guys? Are you understanding? Okay. So now in the previous example, we saw that if I'm going to type the URL of Flipkart application, it will contains the address or information regarding the Flipkart. If I type the URL of Amazon application, it will contain the information or address regarding the Amazon. So here I am going to access the database application, means can you tell me this URL contains the information about which application? This URL contains the information about which application? Java application or database application? Exactly. This URL will contains the information related to the database application. So now, firstly, we are going to learn information related to the database and then we will write the URL of the database. Firstly, we are going to learn the information related to the database, and then we will write the URL of the database. So remember guys, one more time, everyone listen carefully. Important topic, most important topic. Here, as I said, if one person wants to communicate with the another person, they are using the mobile. Okay, within a mobile, they want SIM card also as well as balance also. Okay, or else it will not, they can't communicate with each other. So here also we want API if one application wants to communicate with the another application. Okay, so next is, if one application wants to communicate with the another application, we are using the API, but only API is not enough. We require something called it as uniform resource locator. We required something called it as uniform resource locator. So here, what is uniform resource locator? So for example, I took nothing but, here I have user. User is going to open the browser. Browser is also one kind of application. In this browser application, user is going to type the URL of Flipkart application. So over here, Flipkart application can be accessed in the browser application. Done. So what is the usage of URL? URL we are using to access an application. But now the fact is, what is URL? So URL is going to contains the address or information of an application. Means if I am accessing the Amazon application, URL will contains the information related to the Amazon. If I am accessing the Gmail application, URL will contains the information related to the Gmail. Till this point, is it clear to everyone? Okay. Next is same thing, same concept, but I compared with the Java database connectivity. Now over here, we don't have the browser, we don't have the Flipkart application. Over here, we have, instead of browser, we have Java application. Instead of Flipkart, we have database application. Now, my task is, I want to share the user information from Java application to the database application. I want to share the user information from Java application to the database application. For that, we are using one API called it as jdbc API. It is similar to the one package called it as java.sql package. But just now we learn API is not enough. That's the reason I will make use of URL over here. So why I will use URL in the JDBC? I will use the URL in the JDBC to access database application into the Java application. How I can access it? Because this URL will contains the information related to the database application. What kind of information? So here, if you take one person, if you take this particular person, so this person have name, this person have age, this person have something call it as salary, this person will have email, this all the information is related to the person. Similarly, we have database application. Now database application will have name, database application will have something called it as protocol, database application will have something called it as host information, then port number, and at last, sorry, user information. Okay, so these are the information of database application. These are the information of database application. So this all the things, protocol, host information, port number, user information, we are going to learn in the today's class.